Haven't talked to you guys since the game. Just briefly on that, I thought it was a great start to the season. On the road in the division, tough opponent, tough game. I think our guys, certainly battled back, played well. Obviously, not as good on the first drive, but turned things around after that and just kept fighting, kept battling. I think our group showed a lot of resilience. That's something we talk about, all the time, being a resilient group that can deal with adversity and still come through afterwards. So that was a great opportunity for us to go through that. And then, I thought they did a real nice job in that situation. We had a lot of great efforts from a lot of great guys. I could go through that, but, when you're down, I think the one thing that really showed up to me was there was some real leadership that showed up. I think, Metellus is a guy who comes to mind as someone who was really, bringing energy to the group and staying positive. Jonathan Allen's another guy who was that way. Obviously, he's been around the block and been in games like that, so that was a positive sign. And then, the guys really didn't flinch, and that's something we can hopefully continue to build on. But we kind of turned the page on that. I forget what day that was. Wednesday. What, it's Thursday today. Still, trying to. Didn't get much sleep that night. That first night, still catching up. As I'm sure some of you guys are too. But we've turned the page to Atlanta. This is, a very, very, very good team. Offensively, they got skill guys everywhere. Drake London's one of the, I really enjoy watching him. I think that's the one thing about when you cut on tape of another team, you get to really hone in and watch. He's the first guy that goes to mind just because he's a blocker. He makes contested catches. He's physical. He's tough. He's almost like a linebacker playing receiver. But with a receiver, obviously a major receiver skill set. I just love his toughness. Bijan, this is one of the most explosive players in the National Football League. And you can put him up there with the backs in the league as well. And then, they got a lot of guys. Penix, obviously, really good young quarterback, big arm, gets the ball out quick. Got cute quarterback mobility, which we struggled with last week. And it's something that, we're really going to have to make some corrections there. But that's what the first part of the season is about. Continuing to build on the fundamentals, the techniques, the communication, who does what well, what groupings of players play well together. Still trying to figure some of those things out. We answered some of those questions on Monday night. And I would say we're going to continue to answer them. It's nothing set in stone, but I thought there was a lot of great efforts from a lot of our guys.
With Blake going down, just what did you think of Eric Wilson stepping in, and then did you expect Eric to play that big of a role moving forward?
Yeah, Eric is a seasoned veteran in every way. He's as professional, mature, and as a guy I've been around, and he can play some football. I think he's just got a real innate, instinctive feel to the game. I think we saw that on Monday night, but we've really seen that entire training camp. He's a guy we were sitting there, how do we get him in the game? How do we, maybe we put some packages together to get him in. So he's done a really nice job. And then went in there, green dot, and it was a seamless transition, no issues, no problems. Obviously, it's tough to lose Cash. I think everybody knows what a big part of this defense, he is. But, I think E-Dub and Ivan obviously stepped in and filled his shoes, as best they could. And I thought they did a nice job, both guys.
As you looked on film, what themes did you see in terms of being able to keep Caleb in the pocket and what you need to do with quarterbacks that have that kind of skill set?
Yeah, he's one of the most elusive players in the National Football League. So I thought there was a lot of things that, where we had him, we were in good position, and, he was able to, make a move and get himself into space. There were other instances where, we probably were a little bit too nosy on the inside and he got out. But overall, it's really more about tackling, acceleration to him, but then, being able to break down and then reaccelerate into the ball carrier. And those are things that, without you doing them in game over and over and over again, I think those will improve over the course of the year. But, he's a tough guy to get down. He really is. And, but it's a learning experience for us. Certainly some things we could do better from a just containing the quarterback standpoint. But, I thought the rush was good. I thought the initial rush was good. There was pressure in the pocket. There's a lot of good there. And then, in order for us to finish, there's a couple other things we need to do. And, those are the things we're putting a lot of emphasis on.
Brian, why do you think Van Ginkel is so good at reading screens the way he is?
I'd like to say it was coaching. I'd love to say that. It's not, okay? I think he's just got a real good feel for the sets where those types of plays come in, the players that those types of plays go to, and then he's just got a feel and a knack for it. Don't worry, I've tried to coach it with other people. He's certainly there's a small circle of guys who have that feel and that knack, and that's why we put him out there. I think that's a big part of today's NFL game is getting the ball out quick to the field, to the guys, the skill players, which this team has plenty of those skill players who can make people miss in space, and he kind of handles a lot of that area of the field for us, in a very very positive way. So, among a lot of other things that he does well, setting the edge and pass rush and coverage, and he does a lot of really good things for us. It's a big part of the team.
Right.
Why do you think other quarterbacks haven't figured that out yet? I mean, it's always amazing to watch how often that comes into play.
You would have to ask them. It's hard to. I know it's a big theme trend. I would say kind of spitting the ball a lot. I wouldn't say it's in vogue now, but a lot of teams do it just to get a skill guy the ball in space, and maybe think you can get it around him, or maybe they think he's rushing. It's hard to say, but he does a nice job of maybe baiting people into it, and I know they're talking about it. I know that for sure. But sometimes you think you can fit a ball in, and he's normally in the right position. So I can't speak to why. I know when those plays hit, they're good plays. And I know that if he wasn't making some of those, they could. There's potentially some space, and we talk about that too. Hey, if Gink doesn't make this play, we need this guy to set the edge, and we got to, play cutback and things of that nature. But we're happy we have.
If teams aren't running that any less, do you think our quarterback's throwing it a little differently when they know he's out there?
Yeah, that's hard to say. I know that as far as throwing angles and trying to get it around the guy, but he's the tall guy. He's got the hair flowing. Sometimes it hits that. I don't know exactly what it is, but I think people are trying. They're certainly trying to get it around him when those situations come up. But and sometimes they have. It's not. He's not 100%. Like none of us are. It's never perfect. But he's definitely done a nice job of making people think twice, and oftentimes that's all you need.
Right.
With a Kuda in the protocol, who would be next there if that's needed?
Yeah, we got Nudie. Nudie obviously had a really good training camp, and he's somebody we feel good about. So in those situations, he would go. But like you mentioned, he's in the protocol, and we'll just take that day by day and see how that all shakes out. But Nudie would be the first guy that comes to mind, and got a lot of confidence in him.
Brian, what do you think of Isaiah Rodgers' first game with you guys?
I thought he played well. Corner is one of those positions where you may only get a handful of opportunities, but I thought he tackled well. I thought he was in good position on a lot of his, a lot of the coverage. I'm thinking of the one where I want to say DJ got behind him. I think that's one he wishes he had back. We all wish we had back, but at the same time, we kind of caught a break there. Well, I shouldn't say kind of. We caught a break there. But really, other than that play, I thought he did a lot of nice things.
Ryan, how would you describe the impact of the size quickness combination of Javon Hargrave? And did you know he had long speed to cut off Caleb Williams on that play at the sideline?
I believed he had the long speed. I believed in him. I believed that he could cut him off on the sideline. But the impact is, what you see on film. He's physical. He's got great initial quickness, which then he turns into power. He's just he's got some the word I'm thinking of is some dynamic traits on the inside as far as quickness combined with power, and I think you see that on a snap in, snap out basis. J.A. is the same way. So we're lucky to have both guys. I thought they really got off to a good start, and we're just going to continue to grow and build with them. And I'm still figuring out, hey, the best, positions to I shouldn't say me, we as a staff are trying to figure out best positions to put those two along with everybody else to make the entire collective as good as we can be.
Ryan, you mentioned Bijan's explosiveness.
Yeah.
When you're watching him, what does he do so well that enables him to, make an impact in the run and pass game?
I think you said it's run and pass. I mean, I think he had over 100 yards in the passing game last week. And I just think he's in space. It's as hard to tackle as there is in the National Football League. But as a runner, he's got great vision. He can get to the perimeter. He's certainly got the jump cut ability to put his foot in the ground. If you overrun it, he's going to get back there and pick up some yardage. He's physical. He's fast. Good hands. Good route runner. It's not just your normal swing routes. To a running back. I mean, he can run slants. He runs slant goes. He's got the whole arsenal as far as route running ability, dynamic with the ball in his hands. I was telling our guys earlier, this guy can ruin the game. So we got to pay very close attention to him, know where he's at, and everybody's at the point of attack. That's really what it boils down to. He's got it. We need 11 hats running to the football. We got to play with good technique, good fundamentals. We got to set edges. We got to do everything. But you can do everything right. He can still, bounce out of there, and that's likely to happen. And so, that's where you build in, your resilience as a team, and you line up and play the next play, and do that over and over again for 60 minutes, one play at a time, and see what happens at the end. But it's not just Bijan. It's they got Mooney coming back. It sounds like he's fast. I mean, we had some problems with him last year. Obviously, Pitts. You got the quarterback. They got a really good O-line. Don't forget about Algier. He's a good back too. And so we spent a lot of time talking about this group. When top to bottom, it's they've got as good a skill group as I think there is, and this will be a big challenge. Excited to be at home though. I'll tell you that. And I think the home crowd, the energy that's going to be there. I wrote a note to myself. Remind anyone who's listening. Be as loud as possible. Because we love that. We feed off of it, and it's something that's certainly an advantage for us, especially against a skilled group like that.
Ryan, where's your confidence level in Dallas Turner potentially playing with the starters, number of reps if Andrew Van Ginkel can't go on Sunday?
Very high. I think I thought he played very well last week. When I looked back and saw the snap counts, I was not miffed, but I thought he played more, and we should have got him in more. So he's doing a lot of good things, and if that's the case with Gink, but yeah, again, he's in protocol too. We'll see how that all shakes out. But very confident in Dallas, and I think he's taken a lot of steps forward. And at the end of the day, we've got to see that performance on the field. But he was confident last week. He played physical. He did a lot of good things, and we're going to need that from him. Regardless of who's here. So, hopefully if they're all up, they're all play, and, he's doing a lot of positive things.
You mentioned Penix. Just what impressed you most about him?
There's a lot. I mean, I think he gets the ball out of his hands quickly. So this isn't a situation where, we're gonna, blitz him and, think we're gonna just get there. He's elusive, but he's also, smart with the football, gets it out. So, it's the, how much are we gonna pressure? How much are we gonna cover? How much are we gonna, I think we're kind of putting the whole game plan around, the variety that we always want to have, but with a guy like this who gets it out quick and is trying, to not avoid negative plays, but just he does a good job of not having negative plays. I think you gotta do a good job across the board, and I think that's from a coverage standpoint, from a rush standpoint, from a rerouting standpoint, from a mixing the coverage standpoint. So major challenge. He's a good young quarterback. No doubt about that. He certainly is. And it's just similar to last week, and the talent levels is here. And this will be a tough one for sure.
Thank you guys.
Thank you guys.